From the point of view of negative therapy, the most important thing is uncertainty. That's the special ingredients, so to speak. That's what we need to nurture and value and take care of, which is in marked contrast to our attitude in everyday life when we don't value uncertainty particularly, and we certainly don't go around trying to nurture it. Instead, our general attitude is to crush uncertainty or stamp it out whenever we can, like some kind of weed, or like an error, essentially. And uncertainty is an error as far as the mechanical way of looking at things is concerned. Uncertainty is always an error for machines. Machines work on the basis of having no error, or as near to no error as is possible. So it's fair to say that machines don't have any time for uncertainty, really. And this is fair enough. We can very easily see how any uncertainty in the workings of the machine, of a machine, or how a machine fits together or operates, and the machine stops working immediately. In order for machines to work, there has to be a very, very fine tolerance. Things have to be very, very accurate. You can't make a watch unless it's very, very accurate. The damn thing won't work at all. And we adopt this machine-like way of looking at things, the mechanistic way of looking at things across the board, and we pretty much tend to adopt it as a universal paradigm, instead of seeing it as a way of looking at things that's good for mechanical situations, but not good for all situations, or not good for psychological situations. And the difficulty we have in seeing this is because we do see ourselves as machines, or we see the psyche or the mind as a machine. It's such a potent metaphor, or such a potent way of looking at things, that we can't help assuming that we are machines and that we obey mechanical rules, and that although the human mind, using that term generally, might be a super advanced machine, as we're fond of saying, it's still a machine. We just don't have another category for something which is non-machine-like. We can't make that jump. It's all a machine, as I keep on saying. It's just all types of machine, advanced machines and not so advanced machines. And so it is that in our therapeutic approach, we don't place any value on uncertainty. And yet, uncertainty is the key for everything. And in the psychological realm, uncertainty is the very same thing as freedom. And it's the very same thing as perspective. It's freedom from all the untrue things that dominate us. We can't get free from the unreal things that dominate us in any other way than perceiving the uncertainty of what we have up to this point believed to be certain. So we tend very much to fight against things that are causing us to suffer, or things that are working against us. We take up arms against them and we combat them on their own terms. But all of that simply reaffirms the certainty with which they're invested. It never occurs to us to not struggle or oppose these factors on the terms which they themselves present us. And because it never occurs to us to not rush in and fight and struggle and try to win this conflict situation that is being forced upon us, we become more dominated, more enslaved than ever. And all of this is a consequence of our very limited way of looking at things. Uncertainty means, in a psychological sense, finding out that what we thought was true actually isn't true. So we get a kind of a funny feeling then, one way or another. I go around for years and years, maybe my whole life, thinking certain things are true. And then I discover that they're not true at all. So how does that make me feel? And this is the key point, really, because we can feel two different ways, two completely different ways. When we discover that what we thought always was true isn't true at all, that could come as a tremendous sense of liberation. It could be very exciting because it brings in a whole host of new opportunities, new possibilities that we never even dared to dream of. So it's fantastic, really. It's like, wow, the universe is a bigger place than I dared to think that it was, or dared to dream that it was. So that's an expansion of consciousness via the negation of what I thought to be true. And so as soon as we say that, we can see that expansion of consciousness always occurs when what we thought was true is negated. That's how it always happens. So that's one way in which we could respond, or that's one way we could feel when we find out that our so-called truths aren't true at all. The other way is more common, needless to say, and the other ways can simply be described by saying that we are afraid. The other response is pure fear. Fear so great that we will actually resist the awareness and do away with it if we possibly can, and put an awful lot of energy into validating what we thought was true, proving it to ourselves, reaffirming to ourselves that it really is true, and explaining away, which is the most classic response of the rationalist, explaining away anything that doesn't fit our theory or model. And if you've noticed, that's what rationality always does. It absolutely loves explaining things away. It's nothing but this, it's nothing but that. And so what might seem to be a phenomenon that is outside of our understanding, bigger than our understanding, is cleverly explained away and shown to be just something that does fit within our existing understanding. And we can absolutely explain away anything at all. We're so good at it. Or maybe we should say that the mind is so very good at it. It's very, very good at explaining things away. It's very, very good at validating itself. It's so good that as it happens, the experience of finding out that what we always thought to be true isn't true. It's an experience that we never seem to have. It's very rare to meet someone that will talk about having this experience in which everything they believed on was shown to be untrue. Instead, we have the experience of having what we've always believed to be true to be confirmed as being true. And that experience of having our core assumptions confirmed and confirmed and confirmed over and over again is what we call life. That's life for most of us, almost all of us. It's like a solidifying or a reifying or a congealing of whatever core truths we started off with, truths in inverted commas, being made more and more powerful, more and more unquestionable. And of course that isn't really life at all. I mean, how can we call it life when it's a process of concretization or congealing, a process of ongoing restriction, and the factors that are restricting us are reinforced and reinforced every day that passes until we get to a stage where, obviously, if we carry on down that road, we're going to get to a stage where everything is so reinforced, like reinforced concrete, that we're never going to see beyond them. Not that we want to. We're actually, of course, afraid of seeing beyond them. But even if we did suddenly decide to question them, we wouldn't be able to. The false truth of the world that we believe in has become so oppressive at this stage. It crushes the spirit of inquiry, the spirit of wonderment, really, that we have inside of us. If we wanted, we could talk about that in terms of the inner child and just say, if we were happy to talk in terms of an inner child, and say that the child within us is crushed and oppressed so much it actually is extinguished. Maybe not totally extinguished, but buried at any rate. Because the inner child cannot live within this world of reinforced concrete certainty that we have created for ourselves. It's like a tomb, it's a mausoleum. Life cannot be within it. Life is not supported within this world of certainties. So we could say that there's these two different ways of living life, or two different economies, if you can talk of it in terms of an economy. So the type of economy most of us, and I've absolutely no idea what the statistics would be, but I'd say it must be 99%, something like that maybe. Most of us live in an economy where the good thing is, the thing that we're always looking for, seeking out, is confirmation. Confirmation of our beliefs, confirmation of our core assumptions. And this is such an obvious statement that when we look at people in conversations, there's this tendency to want to assert opinions or beliefs and then be validated in them or prove that they're right. So this comes down to the need to be right. I want to be right. And it feels great to be right. So when I have been proved to be right, either in my own mind or perhaps in the minds of others as well, I get this type of good feeling, the vindication feeling, the satisfaction feeling. It's kind of like a sort of heroin, really. It's like a heroin rush. It's euphoria. It's what we could call structure validation, ego validation. It's what the ego loves most in the whole wide world. And of course, what the ego loves most in the whole wide world is the validation of itself. Kind of goes without saying, really. There is nothing sweeter than that. And so when we're operating on the basis of structure confirmation, currency, the ultimate currency, is this vindication feeling of either getting it right, maybe in the assertions that we come out with, or effectively controlling things. Because when I control something and win in my controlling, that's me being right. I'm right because I'm in control. I've made myself right. Things are going according to my plan, according to my scheme of things. That pretty much guarantees that I'm right. If I'm in control of the whole show, then I'm always right. I'm right because I say I am. So it is very much possible to live our entire lives seeking this particular type of good feeling. And what we're really doing is playing a game, or a finite game, as James Carse would say. We're looking for that good feeling, that nice little rush. But of course, as we play it, other things will happen as well. The game will go against us as well. So we're not always going to be getting advantage. We're not always going to be winning. We'll lose as well. We'll get proved wrong, or we will fail to control successfully. Other people will control better than we do, and it's what they say goes rather than what we say goes. And so the tables are turned on us, and when that happens, that good feeling of structured validation, structured confirmation, is replaced by the bitter feeling of devalidation, which, as we all know, is not a nice feeling at all. It's a common term these days, devalidation. And apparently it's important to validate people and not devalidate them. But actually, whether you validate people or invalidate them doesn't make any difference, because you're reaffirming the ego either way. Because to devalidate the ego is still to assume the existence of the ego. In other words, a loser ego is just as much as an ego as a winner ego. They're both forms of certainty, positive and negative certainty. And as I started out by saying, freedom isn't either positive or negative, but it's a degree of awareness of the relativity of all positive and negative statements. Now, the amazing thing about this way of living life, where we're always looking for confirmation of our beliefs or what our core assumptions are, is that it is completely lacking in curiosity. There is no investigation here going on at all. We're absolutely asserting, it's conservatism, we're absolutely asserting our way of looking at things, and we don't ever, ever, ever want to change that, because that is the worst thing ever, to have to give up our way of looking at things. So it's a way of life that is completely based on fear. We're afraid of what we might find out when we find out that we're wrong. And of course we always are wrong, because all of our beliefs and core assumptions are always wrong. It's in the nature of beliefs and assumptions. And the other way of looking at things, the other approach to life, is what we might call an exploratory way of living, where we're actually orientated towards truth rather than validation. And what matters to us, what excites us, is finding out what's actually true. So it doesn't matter if I'm wrong or been barking up the wrong tree, because it's not about me being right. So in the exploratory way of living life, every time we find out that something we thought was true isn't true, as I said earlier, this is a profoundly liberating experience. This is what we're living for, really. We're living for that moment when we can see through the falsehoods or the misunderstandings that were hemming us in, which is growth. So the point of life is to grow. Life is growth. If we're not growing, we're not alive. So this approach, this economy, is really the most natural expression of who we are. Growth is a natural expression of life. It is the expression of life. So this is life when it isn't being thwarted, when it isn't being blocked or held back or repressed. And so when I explore the world, I'm not looking to prove that what I thought was true is true. I'm looking to find out ways in which what I thought was true isn't true. And this corresponds to what James Crass calls the infinite game. In the infinite game, I'm playing to be surprised. I'm not playing to bring everything to a conclusion and shut everything down. So we can round this off by saying that in the exploratory mode of living life, uncertainty is everything. Uncertainty is the life-giving oxygen. There's uncertainty in everything if we look closely enough, and that uncertainty is what frees us. And in the conservative way of living life, which is the default way of living life that we all fall into so easily, uncertainty is the enemy. And we're convinced that if we can eradicate it completely, then everything will be good. So this is the supreme delusion which we're under, which is the same as saying that we imagine that when we control everything perfectly and exactly get everything right, the way our minds say it should be, the way the thinking mind says it should be, then this will be a good thing. Only of course it won't. Okay, thanks for watching.